With everything that is going on in the world, it's so easy to feel helpless. We have a constant stream of depressing information swarming from our phones at every glance. You're welcome, here comes some more. Sorry. They serve as an omnipresent reminder that there's too much to care about, with each issue distracting from the last. It's arguably necessary for our own self preservation and sanity to become apathetic. It's not that we don't care, it's that we can't. We are faced with the confusing truth that statistically, it's the best time to be alive, making it feel wrong, selfish even, to complain. But it doesn't feel like the fucking best time to be alive. And just because it's never been better, shouldn't mean that this is the best that it gets. Welcome to the angry generation. I hope you enjoy the show. So, apathetic Gen Z, do you even have any goals? What are you striving towards? Are you working hard in school to get into a good university, to get a well paid job? Good luck. Or are you looking for sex and romance and then marriage and children? Surely you're not thinking that far ahead. Maybe you want to be famous. Or maybe you want to see the world. Or are you simply just counting down the days to retirement? Maybe you're saving for that new phone or new car. Do you set goals? Or do you just go with the flow? Speak when spoken to? Sign on the dotted lines? And wonder what happened? Does that sound familiar? What do you want? Why do you want it? Did you ever consider why you need to go to university? Or why being well paid is important? Or why we are forced to work to survive? Have you ever questioned your last big purchase? Or wondered how you spent so much time online? How often do you think about climate change and nuclear war? And when was the last time that you did something to prevent either? Fundamentally, what world do you want to live in? What world do you want to leave behind when you're gone? Often, when I feel unmotivated to pursue my goals, I like to consider the start and the end. But just to clarify, I'm always motivated to pursue my goals because I watch TikTok and YouTube and they all tell me how to do it. And I will just do the exact same thing. We are all born and we all die. There are an infinite number of ways that we get from A to B. We are everything that has ever happened to us, and so we will continue to be everything that ever happens to us. We are not free to change our path from birth to the point we now find ourselves at, but we are always free to influence our onwards journey towards death. With every decision we make, we alter the range of possible journeys and outcomes that lie before us. There always exists a best and worst life that we can live in this range of possibilities. As you get closer to the end, you have less agency over your final destination, and this range of possible outcomes diminishes until, when you die, your journey is determined exactly. But beyond those final seconds of breath, we all have the power to shift our trajectory up and up to the highest achievable echelons. So, will you choose to be an NPC just along for the ride? Or will you try and fail and try and fail and try again to keep being as good as you can be? You might ask, what does it mean to be as good as I can be? What determines a successful life? Well, this definition is yours alone to make. But here are some examples. One way is monetarily. How much money did you make? Or perhaps you want to be the next Genghis Khan, and in that sense, how large was your empire and how many children did you have? Or maybe your definition of success is your high score on Flappy Bird. If that's the case, genuinely and from the bottom of my heart, good luck. Will McCaskill, an Oxford professor of philosophy, and his team at 80,000 Hours have spent more time than we could imagine asking this question. Their definition is outlined in 80,000 Hours and in What We Owe the Future, books I cannot recommend highly enough. Success, in their eyes, is making the world a better place to live for us and for the potentially innumerable generations of humans to come. Innumerable generations of humans to come. Wow, what does that mean? Okay, literally just like if la 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 la, if we don't go extinct now, there will be potentially lots and lots and lots of humans that could be born in the future. Sorry, innumerable is a big word, I admit it, and it's quite hard to say. That took a lot of takes. Like our own lives, humanity started with the first human and will end with the last. There is no such thing as forever. Even the universe appears to have a start point and will eventually fade into mere nothingness. But just as our lives can be scored at the end, so too can the fate of humanity, like in a game of civilization. And we should always strive to get the best possible score. However, things are going wrong in the world. There is, as Noam Chomsky likes to say, the continued destruction of organized human life on Earth. He actually says this this is when he talks about climate change. He actually says the continued destruction of organized human life on Earth. That's crazy. I.e., the climate catastrophe and war in Europe that brings the threat of nuclear evisceration ever closer, as well as growing inequality in the West, rendering young people's futures less prosperous than their parents. I believe that if what was going on today occurred in previous generations, there would be outrage and anger leading to protests, riots, and rebellions. Just because the revolutions of the past, like the French, the American, the Russian, the Chinese, happened in the past, shouldn't confine, if necessary, revolution to the past. It's not a historical artifact, people. Our devices, which inform us of the horrors of the world, are the perfect tool to communicate en masse and organize. And yet, I honestly feel more distracted, confused, and isolated when I use mine, pacified as it were. We have protested, and we have, in some instances, even rioted. Millions demonstrated during the climate change marches of 2019, but the only thing that kept changing since then has been our climate. We should be the angry generation. Where are your pitchforks and forks? Your pitch torches, your pitchforks, your torches, your pitchforks and your forches. Legally, I'm not calling for revolution. The aim of this series is to inspire thoughtful conversation amongst our generation so that we may evaluate the hand with which previous generations have dealt us. My aim is to help foster and nurture the necessary environment so that we can recognize our strength as the socially aware, caring generation which can change the world for the better, but only if we cooperate en masse. We are a sleeping giant, a behemoth. Is it any wonder that Republicans in the USA have thought about raising the voting age? They're scared because they have recognized our power. It's time that we did too. I will end with a short bit on me and what has inspired this project. Most episodes won't revolve around me because this project isn't about me, but I think it's useful to understand my motivations in order to frame future episodes. I currently find myself in a classroom setting as a teacher. Well, obviously. How else would I find myself in a classroom setting? A student? No. It's a teacher. Okay, sorry. It's only temporary as I don't plan on teaching long term. One of my main goals for this period was to inspire my students to grapple with large ideas that are currently affecting them and that will continue to affect their future. My hope was to have a positive influence on them and their future impact on the world. I realized two things very quickly. As a teacher, I'm constrained by the syllabus and pressure to perform well in exams. As such, the scope of my responsibilities is limited, meaning that having an outsized impact on the students is difficult, not that I don't try. The second thing that I realized was more of an epiphany. If I really was serious about steering the direction of this generation to positively influence the future, why should I limit myself to one school when the internet gives me access to hundreds, if not thousands, if not maybe millions of eager ears? So here I am. My next inspiration comes from my own cautionary experience. When I was 16, not too long ago, I was very curious to the ways of the world, and I did what any curious 16-year-old would do. I watched YouTube. As I didn't know exactly what I was curious in, I was healthily directed by the recommendations of the algorithm. I insatiably consumed the content I was fed, and I quickly became an avid listener of Joe Rogan. He frequently, or at least used to when I watched, admits to knowing nothing about the world, but whether actively or not, alongside the algorithm, he taught me about the world. I was exposed to the likes of Ben Shapiro, Stephen Crowder, Milo Yiannopoulos, Jordan Peterson, and Alex Jones. My curious self spent an embarrassing amount of time absorbing their doctrine. For a period, I embodied the countercultural troll spirit, highlighting at every available moment the supposed hypocrisy of quote unquote woke feminism. Eventually, I saw the light and realized the foolishness of some of my attempts at devil's advocacy. Fortunately, Joe Rogan was never nefarious, and he also exposed me to the likes of Sam Harris, Will McCaskill, Matthew Walker, Jonathan Haidt, Bernie Sanders, and Andrew Yang. Oh wow, an all male list. Who would have guessed? Joe's guests are exceedingly male. I was able to branch out and no longer rely on the algorithm or Joe for people worth listening to. But now I wish I was exposed to the Chomskys of the world from the start, rather than having to wade through such toxic alt-right internet culture to find them. My contrarian flame could have been better fed and would burn brighter today had that been the case. Whilst Joe has his flaws, or at least had his flaws, the wider spectrum of guests enabled me to find those worth listening to. I fear that had I been born slightly later, I would have had to combat a more powerful YouTube algorithm as well as that of TikTok, meaning that I could have fallen down the rabbit hole of someone like Andrew Tate instead. You. The final aim of this project is to be an alternative place for curious minds that will signpost them to more qualified thinkers wherever possible. In this series, I will attempt to synthesize and simplify issues that I believe we should be angry about. Most of the content will revolve around how the design of systems surrounding these issues can lead to locked in behaviors that exacerbate the problems we currently face. I don't claim to be an expert, and will instead reference all the people who I have found useful when I was formulating my viewpoint, so that you, too, may listen and read them. Ciao, blah, blah, blah.